What's up, everybody? You're listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe, and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Extension Hour. I'm Amy Rustler, County Extension Agent for Family and Community Health. And this is the Extension Hour where we talk about our people, our programs, our partnerships. And partnerships is one of the things we're going to focus on today. So I've done several shows with the Behavioral Health and Suicide Prevention Task Force and different work group members. And today I have two beautiful women with me here. I've got Regan Steinert and Janelle Martin, and they are involved with the Behavioral Health and Suicide Prevention, mostly because of a really personal story and a personal experience. So there's so many parts, so many things that are related to mental health and mental wellness. And sometimes when those things get off track, they can lead to some difficult situations. And so that's kind of what we wanted to focus on today. So I'm not going to tell your story. I'm going to let you guys start telling your story. So go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll get into kind of why you're here and what our topic for the day is.
All right, so my name is Regan Steinert, and I am 21 years old. I am currently a recovery coach and becoming a licensed chemical dependency counselor. And after I complete that, I also want to get my LPC. So working in the recovery field, as I am also personally in recovery myself. And I will pass it to my mother.
Okay. Let me interrupt you just a second. So I'm really bad about using acronyms as well. So you said an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
And Janelle, you are an LPC.
I'm an LCDC.
Okay, which is
a licensed chemical dependency counselor.
Okay.
I'm also an IASIS certified provider, so I am able to provide MicroCurrent Neurofeedback, and which helps heal the brain, which helps people with addictions because it helps to heal the damage that can be done with substances. So I'm also a mom of Regan, and our journey is, it's quite an interesting one, but it's one that we feel like is really important to tell because we're normal people and we're a normal family, and addiction still is part of our lives. So it can happen to anybody.
right. So if I were to just meet you on the street, I would just never imagine that you had been through struggles that you've been through.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that happen?
Okay, so so starting from a young age for me, my parents got divorced whenever I was very young. I think I was about 3. And so around that time, my dad kind of still lived in the same area, and me and my older brother would go visit him every other weekend. And just kind of from a young age, I had started feeling as if my father really favorited my brother more. And things were getting chaotic between him and my mom, and there was kind of like fighting starting. Also at 5 years old, I was sexually assaulted by my dad's neighbor, for the entire almost year or so that he lived there. And I didn't tell anybody. I was too scared, so I held that in for forever. But pretty much just growing up, it was really more so just the fighting between like my mom and my dad, and it was more so just like all that chaos, and me and my brother always feeling like we had to choose sides, like we were put in the middle of it. Because I also want to preface, my brother was my entire world. He was my everything, my protector. We were so close. So by the time I got into junior high, at this point, me and my dad weren't really close at all. He had moved away to a different state. So we didn't get to see him a whole lot, and when we were there, it was that favoritism with my brother just played in a lot more. It was kind of like I was always alone there, and it was just them always having fun, and whatever my brother wanted went, and whatever I wanted was dismissed. And there was also a certain time I remember whenever we went to visit him, we were eating at the dinner table, and he had made comments telling me that I'm fat, that, making like those kinds of comments. I was about 9 years old. And so I quickly got an eating disorder. I started starving myself. I really wanted him to accept me. I wanted to feel that love from him, wanted him to favorite me too. So now looking back, I can see that's where my addiction started, was in my eating habits. But anyways, yeah, so moving into junior high, my dad took my mom to court to get custody of my brother, but not me. So that's pretty much where I kind of fell off at that point, because I couldn't understand. I had always kind of had that suspicion that he didn't love me the same. And then that just kind of solidified it in my mind. And so that's honestly where I started getting really depressed. And it started to ruin mine and my brother's relationship a lot, because we had to talk to attorneys and stuff about it, and my story was very different from my brother's story. My brother's was completely out there, like fighting abuse in the home and all of that, and it wasn't true. So my dad didn't get custody of him, and so my dad pretty much blamed it on me and told my brother it was my fault that he couldn't move in with my dad. So that really put a strain on our relationship, and so at that point, it really sucked. I felt really alone, because I counted on my brother for everything. Growing up, I thought he was the only person I could trust.
And you were about how old at that time?
You were 8th grade when that went down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 13, 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Janelle, what was going on with you around
Oh
this
my
time?
gosh. You know, it's one of those things as a parent, you see what's happening and you can't do anything about it. So
Right.
I was bound by a court order where the visitation had to happen. And you think, luckily, he didn't live in the same state, so it should have been easier, but it wasn't. There was, you know, we have cell phones, so there was constant communication, and there was constant badgering, especially of my son. And it was so obvious that it was disruptive to our home, but what could I do?
Right.
If I stop that, then I look like the bad guy because I'm stopping the communication. So this is kind of one of those snowballs. It's snowballing, and I can't do anything about it. And the last thing I want to do is have chaos in my home. So I didn't talk about it really at all either. I didn't defend myself. I didn't do any of those things. But on their end, they were hearing a lot of things that untruths that they wanted clarification, and it was. I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. And so you see your kids suffering, and there's just not a lot you can do. However, drugs was not ever part of something I could ever envision happening.
Right.
So I can see that we have issues. I can feel the tension in the home, but I'm feeling like the best thing I can do is provide just a normal space for them. They played sports, and they were busy, and they got good grades, and, everything was normal in that way. And you feel like if you keep your kids busy, they'll maybe not hurt so much from the other things that you don't have control over. So that was where I was. But it just continued to get worse.
Right.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
So, I like to say with that, because that was her mindset at the time, but with my depression totally kicking in, I was never big on self-harming. I'm horrible with pain, so I could never get myself to do it.
Right.
But I do remember at that point, because there were certain times where I'd get home from school and I'd be home alone. Everybody would be gone, and I would be like sitting there with a razor, really debating on it. And checking the cabinet for any type of like medications that I could just overdose on. So like for me, it was getting pretty serious, and I would just never talk about it. And so from that point on, I went into my freshman year, and I got my first boyfriend. You know how that goes. But anyways, so that's kind of when my addiction with like the eating stuff kind of progressed to guy attention. And so I lost my virginity. I was 14, so I was a baby, didn't know what I was doing. But I got caught because I was lying about where I was, and I was staying at this guy's house. And so it really seemed like after that, can I say like... No. Everything went downhill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree. It was downhill from there.
Right. Because, I mean, it's confusing enough just to be a teenager, right? And so many
Mm-hmm.
changes happening. And then the desire that we have for love and acceptance and
Mm-hmm.
trying to find it wherever you can,
Absolutely.
even if it's
Wrong.
and
yeah.
someone who does not have your best interests in mind,
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
obviously just kind of makes things 100 times worse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So she caught me at this boy's house. And of course, I'm grounded. I'm in trouble. I lied about where I was and all of that. And it came out that I had lost my virginity. And for some reason, it really made my brother hate me. And I never really understood it, but I think it was because he, as much as I put him on that pedestal and gave him that brotherly and fatherly role, he very much took that on for himself. So to him, it felt like he failed trying to raise me.
And how much older than you is
2
is
years.
he? Okay.
2 years.
All right.
Yeah. So, so at that point, our relationship was completely destroyed. He wouldn't talk to me or have anything to do with me unless he was calling me names, call me a whore, whatever it was. And it was very hurtful. And eventually he started trying to get physical with me. And there were a couple times where he did put his hands on me. And her and my stepdad would have to break up those fights. And so at that point, I really just hated my life, hated myself, and it really just became to a point where I needed another way out. And I think it's not really funny, but it kind of is, because all up to this point, I was always the girl that was if you do drugs, you're a bad person. If you're even friends with somebody that does them, don't talk to me. But I mean, after all of that happened, quickly, that's where I ended. So I think I tried weed for the first time, and that was my first time really getting high.
At 16?
And 16 might have been younger,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
I think so. No, it was 16 because I had a car. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
It was very quickly after turning 16.
Okay, so it sounds like maybe there's even more things that which is so that's kind of what we want to talk about, and so you're telling a story that a parent or a mom would be just oh, how does this happen, right? So
Absolutely.
we're going to take a break, but we're going to come back, and Janelle, you're going to have a chance to tell us a little bit about how did this happen.
Yeah.
All right, so you're listening to the Extension Hour. We talk about our people, our programs, our partnerships. We've got some very open people here today giving us a little bit of insight to their story and how things happen related to mental health and addiction. So we'll be back right after this.
Hey, this is Wayne Green, your host for Radio Wayne, Spoke and More. Each Saturday from 5 to 7 p.m., I'll be playing folk, singer-songwriter, Americana, blues, bluegrass, classic country, Cajun Zydeco, Celtic swing, and whatever else seems to fit. Once again, that's Radio Wayne, Spoke and More, every Saturday from 5 to 7 p.m. on Lone Star Community Radio.
We have the safest food supply in the world. Strict laws and regulations restrict the usage of hormones, antibiotics, and pesticides within our food supply. Production agriculture practices and technologies such as the use of GMOs, which is not any more or less risky than conventional crop production, has allowed American farmers to produce more food on less acres in environmentally sound ways. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M Agrilife Extension, helping Texans make lives better.
What is homelessness? Have you seen how parents struggle to find a job when they have neither transportation or childcare? What about the children sleeping in cars with nothing to eat? Families shouldn't have to struggle to survive, and children should not be homeless. Family Promise of Montgomery County serves the needs of homeless families and their children. Learn about partnership opportunities and how you can help at www.familypromiseofmc.org or call 936-441-8778.
Welcome back. This is the Extension Hour. I'm Amy Ressler. We talk about our people, our programs, our partnerships, and one of the things that we've been doing in family and community health is addressing some mental health issues. And we've got a lot of programs that can help kind of address mental health, but of course what we do in Extension is very much a preventative side. So we've got some classes on stress less with mindfulness. We're coming up with a youth mental health curriculum so that hopefully it gives kids an opportunity to talk about some of those things that can be bothering them. And so, I think as I'm listening to the story that we've got Regan Steinert here and Janelle Martin, and we're listening to their story about basically Regan became addicted to drugs. And so she's shared a little bit about a lot of trauma going on in her life and things happening and really no outlet to talk about it. Very loving, present mom that's there, willing, but a lot of pain going on inside that makes it really hard to share that information. And so you were saying before we went to break how you felt like you just couldn't, you thought that only bad people do drugs and you're not one of those bad people, but you got into drugs, right? So started smoking some weed.
Yeah, so it started with smoking weed, and at that point, it was mainly because I just didn't really care about much anymore. So I was like, I'll try it, whatever, everyone does it anyways. And it was that first initial high for me, right? So none of my problems, none of my pain, like it was all non-existent at that moment whenever I was high. Mm-hmm. And so like that just really stuck with me. I was so sick for like all of those years since being little, feeling all that pain and not feeling like I had anybody to talk to about it or anybody that really cared. Because if I'm going to be honest, like my mom was always there for me. But it was that aspect of when she was saying how she would mostly stay silent and not share her side. Mm-hmm. At that time, I didn't understand that. For me, it made me really resentful towards her because I'm like, why aren't you sticking up for yourself? Like if everything he's saying is not true, why aren't you saying something,
So Janelle, do you want to, why, I mean, you explained it a little bit.
Yeah, because, and I've had this conversation with friends and my husband now, and the best advice that I got was just to stay above it. Because if you do the same thing, the kid does not know what to believe. They want to believe both parents, and they don't want to believe that their parents would lie to them. So if you just wait it out, eventually the kids will understand and know what the truth is. So that's what I was hoping for, that eventually if I just didn't engage, and I wasn't perfect at it. There were times where I just had to say something, but
you were in a lot of pain
it was
yourself,
very
right?
difficult. Yes, because I'm very aware about what's going on in my home, and I knew that a lot of that was going on. I didn't know specifics at the time, but I knew it was happening, and just felt like my best game plan would be to keep my mouth quiet and just let them figure it out, because they always will figure it out at some point. So that's what I did. Yeah.
So,
but I had no idea she was in that kind of pain. Mm-hmm. I knew some of it, but I think I know I didn't understand the depth of it for her.
And so, Regan, you are a recovery counselor now, so you're working with teens. So,
Yes.
In retrospect, you can't change the past. What happened. But is there something now that, like, if you could go back and tell your 16-year-old self, that you would tell yourself, or something that you would tell some of the kids that you're working with?
If I could go back and tell my 16-year-old self something, it wouldn't be to change anything that happened or that I did, because it got me where I am today. I think it would more so be of, like, just stay strong, like you just keep pushing through, even when you want to die, just keep living, because I promise it's all worth it in the end. just some type of motivation, or even to say like somebody does love you, like you're just not completely worthless. Nobody is. Because I didn't know that. That's really what I thought of myself. I thought, because especially once I started using, it was like I have absolutely nothing, right? I made it up in my mind, I was put on this earth to die when I'm 18 from doing drugs, and that was pretty much my plan. So do you want me to get back into it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just smoking weed for a while, and the fighting and everything was still going on. My brother graduated and left the house, and that was still hard on me, even though he was horrible to me. So I continued, and I just didn't think I had anything to live for. It was, what's the point? Nobody cares about me anyways. Clearly nobody loves me. Otherwise I wouldn't have the life that I have. So I started getting into harder drugs, because weed didn't give me that high that, I wanted it to be more. I wanted to shut everything out. And I wanted to die. So I started doing a lot of acid, and I started doing a lot of Xanax. And I never really drank. I was never a big drinker. I hated the taste. It was disgusting. But, I pretty much just totally sold my life to doing drugs. I ended up stopped playing volleyball, because that used to be my escape, and it just didn't do it anymore. That pain was just so overwhelming. So, eventually going up into my senior year, I'm skipping school, showing up high, I'm doing coke, Molly. Really, you name it, I'm pretty much doing it at that point. And I just didn't care about anything. I don't know if you want to go into.
Yeah, I saw a darkness envelope her over about, I would say about 8 months, a period of time. And in the very beginning, probably 6 of those months, I had really no idea what was happening. I could just see it. She dressed like a homeless person. She stopped really caring. She had really long hair, and she wouldn't brush it for days. She just looked awful. And you look at her. She's a beautiful girl. She's always looked like this. But it was like she was folding in on herself and trying to hide. And I'll never forget that, because that was heartbreaking. And at that point, there's something really wrong. She's telling you everything's fine. So I can't get her to talk to me. But thank goodness somebody told me what was going on with her and broke me out of my denial, I guess. It didn't stop it at that point, but it alerted me to okay, this is what's going on. Of course, she promised, I'll stop, it's fine, I just am sad, I need a counselor. We did that. She fooled the counselor. She went to Sessions High. It was not a chemical dependency counselor, so I didn't know anything about that then. So it's not really appropriate to just send your kid that has a drug problem to any old counselor. Okay. They don't all understand what it is to be addicted, or what that looks like, or even what that population is dealing with. Right. So it's a special type of thing. So I didn't know that. I had no idea. I've never done drugs in my life. I never smoked a cigarette. I never would. So new for me. I'm clueless, absolutely clueless what to do, but I know this is bad. But she says she's fine. I believed her, like I wanted to, because she was telling me the right things. Got her a dog. We did whatever she wanted. If you just don't do drugs, you can have whatever you want. We did that.
But you were still doing
that did not work.
So, yeah, I totally manipulated the dog, which I still have today.
Yes.
Good. So.
Yes. But luckily, she progressed very quickly in her addiction, and within 6 months of that, it broke. Right, it broke, and I had to kick her out, and it was the middle of her senior year of high school, and I sent her to her dad, which broke my heart.
I can imagine.
Yeah. After all that you've just heard, sending my kid to her dad was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I wouldn't allow it in my house. You can't do drugs in my house.
So then what happened?
So for me, just my point of view is at that point when she kicked me out, I mean, I was totally consumed by the drugs. There was not a thing in this world that I cared about, pretty much other than my dog, because I thought that was the only thing that loved and cared about me. And so she kicked me out and told me that I was going to go live with my dad. And so while she's internally freaking out, about what she just talked about, I'm sitting here thinking that's a great idea. He does not care about me. I don't care about him. So we'll just be like roommates, right? I'll live there. I'll do whatever I want and we'll just stay out of each other's lives. Mm-hmm. And that's what I expected. I mean, he's done it almost 18 years this far. So, it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. So how did that work out?
Not like that. So, packed my stuff, go live with him in Arizona. And the first week, it was okay. I was kind of just playing nice. 'Cause really for me, I was trying to put on this show that I was fine, that I was good, that I was happy, when that wasn't the case. But anyways, so once I start getting connected with the people in school that, did the things that I did, again, my life is completely consumed again. I'm staying out all the time and there's never really a second of the day that I'm actually sober. And so around that time, my dad starts trying to have father-daughter time every day. Let's go to lunch. What time do you get off of school? Let's go do this together. And it pissed me off. It really did. And I would just always say no, I have plans. I never really said anything to him. I was just no, I'm busy. But it just really made me mad because I didn't understand. I'm you had almost 18 years. It was only a couple months before my 18th birthday, right? And so I'm you've had almost 18 years to care about me. And you never wanted to, you never did. So why all of a sudden now, why is that a thing? You know, you don't love me, you don't want to hang out with me. So stop acting like it, stay on your side and I'll stay on mine. And so, we started fighting a lot, almost pretty much every day. He would tell me you need to be home at this time. I would pretty much say F you and do whatever I wanted. And that didn't fly with him. He loves to have all the control in every situation, and he did not have control over me as much as he liked to say that he did. And that's
Back to Mom.
Yep.
So, okay, wait, Mom. Before we get into that, all right. So
Yeah.
let's do just another little break, and then
Okay.
we'll come back and find out what happened next. What was the breaking point? And then we really want to focus on what did we learn from that? How can we help others? To move forward and those kinds of things. So we'll be back right after this on the Extension Hour.
From the beginning, the main purpose of the Cooperative Extension Service has been to change human behavior by teaching people how to apply the results of scientific research. By utilizing a holistic, multi-level approach, Extension family and community health programs encourage health and well-being for everyone. Addressing values, concerns, and needs with reliable science-based information, Extension programs help people lead healthier lives. We are Texas A&M Agrilife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Do you want to know what's going on in Conroe? Tune in to Keeping Up with Conroe. Keeping Up with Conroe will highlight upcoming events and local businesses in the area. Keeping Up with Conroe will air the second Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. and will be hosted by the Conroe CVB staff. Keeping Up with Conroe will highlight Conroe's amazing attractions for residents and visitors. So tune in to Keeping Up with Conroe and join the staff of the Conroe CVB every month on Lone Star Community Radio. For more information about Keeping Up with Conroe and the Conroe CVB, go to visitconroe.com.
God's Garage is a 501c3 that repairs and gives away cars for free to single moms, widows, and wives of deployed military. You can help God's Garage by donating a vehicle, volunteering your time, or by monetary donation. God's Garage is located at 2106 East Davis, Conroe. If you'd like to learn more about God's Garage, visit our website at godsgarage.org, or you can contact us and we would be glad to come and make a presentation to your group.
Welcome back. This is Extension Hour. I'm Amy Ressler. We're talking about Behavioral Health and Suicide Prevention Task Force, sort of, but we are talking about a very specific case that involves behavioral health and in some cases. So Regan, I'm listening to you tell your story, and you're talking about kind of having suicidal tendencies, like not really wanting to live, and just you kind of hit rock bottom. You're with your dad. Things are not going as well as you thought that it would, or maybe as bad as you thought that it would, because you were like really looking for a way out. Am I understanding that?
Yeah.
All right, but mom
100%.
is still at home biting your nails, worrying about your child. Yeah.
Yes, I am. And so the story I'm getting after she moved was everything's great from both of them, right? Everything's perfect. Everything's going fine. So, all right, I guess that's the right decision. I'm feeling pretty good with maybe that was the right thing to do. So, but very quickly it went south, and Regan came to visit. So she moved at the middle of her senior year. So on January 1st was when she was at her dad's full time. So spring break came, and she had a trip planned to come and visit me for a specific reason. And she didn't want to come, which was weird. But then I talked her into coming. It was weird. But she came, and we had what I thought was a really great visit. She was only here for a few days. We were pretty much together the whole time. She seemed good. But then she went home, and literally within 4 days of that, she was in treatment. So I don't know exactly what was going on in her mind when she came to visit me, but when she got back, the bottom literally fell out, and I had no idea that there was any issues going on. So I got a phone call from her dad, and he was in tears. And they had just had a knockdown, drag-out fight, and she was not happy. I believe the cops were called. It was a big sort of, we call it her meltdown moment, like Britney Spears, she shaved her head, all of it, literally. It was like the ultimate of, this girl is out of control and needs help, and we don't know what to do with her. I know I can't fix that. I'm in Texas. She's in Arizona, and he's describing this to me, and I'm like, I don't know that girl. She's never been like that with me, but I know I'm not qualified to do or to help her. We need to find some place to take her, because I don't know what else to do, and I'm afraid. He was terrified she was going to run away, because she wasn't 18 yet. She was still 17. So literally within 3 months, I was tasked with trying to figure out where to put her, what treatment center to put her, my 17-year-old girl. And I don't know anything about treatment. I don't know anything about drugs. I don't know anything about anything. And I'm fully admitting at the time, I know nothing. So what do? You get on Google, and you go, I got to save my kid's life. And I don't know who to ask. I don't have friends that I know of that have been through this.
And so is Google helpful?
So actually, my faith has always been very strong, thankfully. I don't know how I would have ever made it through without that. So, so mostly what I did was pray and, yes, Google, because I don't know what else to do. And so in my case, this particular program that she ended up going to kept coming up in the searches. And there were others too, and I was making phone calls, and I was emailing and trying to contact, and this particular program was the only one that actually talked to me and would talk to me every time I called, right? So it wasn't because I needed help. I needed somebody to give me advice, and they were the ones that did, and they promised me, if you can just get her here, we'll keep her. And it was an adolescent program, so it was what I felt like was good for her, and they were kind. They were really kind, and I was terrified, I will say, because it wasn't like I could go there and check it out. So I had to trust that he would, and with her, and that was so hard, but
imagine.
he ended up, and it's a 2.5 hour drive from where he lived. So she was going to be in a place where neither one of us were. But he got her there, and they did keep her, and she started treatment on March 23rd or something of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she was there 10 months, and it was amazing. And then she got homesick and wanted to come home, which I loved, right? I missed her, and she was doing well. She was sober, and she came home, and of all the things that I learned while she was in treatment, I did parent meetings every week. As part of her program, there's a parent program. Thank God, because I needed somebody to help me understand what happened, how does this happen, and how do I help her, and how do I help me? Because I'm a mess. I'm a puddle. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid, right? I'm terrified that she's going to die. And it'll be because I didn't do something right. So they had a robust parent program that I couldn't physically go to because, again, I'm in Texas. So a mom in the program, they connected me with lots of moms, which I was able to talk to. And I will tell you, talking to another parent that's also in that situation is life-changing.
Okay.
It just is life-changing. You figure out you're not the only one. And everybody has a story that's equally as horrible, it seems like, and terrifying. But it gives you hope because these kids are getting better. These people are able to get better. And even if we're new in the program, we talk to ones who've been there and they're succeeding. And it gives you that hope that your kid can be okay. So one of the parents would phone me in, and I would be on speakerphone at a meeting every week. And it was amazing. It really was. And then I got a sponsor, and then I went through the program. It was the 12-step program she was in. So I wanted to learn the 12 steps so I could have a conversation with her about what she's learning. And I wanted to understand it. If I don't understand it, I can't talk to her about it, right? So I dove in, and it just snowballed for me from there, because then we started to be able to have really good conversation about our lives and what had happened and why this happened, and just getting real honest and vulnerable with each other about what I was thinking in situations and where she was at, and our relationship just grew closer and closer and closer daily, I think, through that whole time. But then she got homesick and moved home, and it was wonderful, but then she relapsed. Because we didn't understand that support for recovery is ongoing and forever. It's not, oh, you're fixed because I've spent 10 months and I'm sober. And so there's a lot of lessons that we've learned through treatment and through recovery that through experience, not the greatest experiences, but they've taught us lessons that we've taken and been able to apply as we've gone. So she did relapse, and it was a terrible one. We're not sure how she lived through it, actually. So, and that was about a 4 week period of time she was gone. And then she decided that wasn't for her, and she wanted to be sober again. So she's been home and sober since March 15th, 2019. So it'll be it's 2.5 years sober. And that's when we really dove into finding resources here and support for her here, because all of her support was in Arizona. So when she moved home, that was what was absent. So lesson learned, we have to have support. And I have to have support too. I continually have gone to meetings. I still go to those meetings in Arizona. Now they have a video conferencing, so it's a little bit nicer. So I will join those when I can, but I started meetings here for parents called Parents of Addicted Loved Ones, and we meet on Tuesdays in the Woodlands.
Okay.
So, yeah, just to give back, because that parent-child relationship is so unique. Al-Anon is great. All of those meetings are really great, but the parent-child relationship is a unique one. We don't divorce our kids. We can't leave our kids. I mean, parents don't want to do that and can't do that. So it's just a different dynamic, and so we address that specifically in those meetings. Yeah.
So how was the recovery process for you?
Just carrying the show.
So we've got just a couple minutes before our next break, but just kind of kind of in a
So
nutshell.
yeah, so I'll start. Yeah, it was a huge meltdown with my dad. Awful, but he ends up getting me to this program, and immediately amongst walking in, kids just run to me, right? Giving me hugs, asking my name, telling them they love me, that they're so happy. And I'm like so weirded out. I'm like, ew, that's gross. You don't know me. Yeah. And I remember because I went in to talk to the head counselor there, right? And he's trying to kind of get a feel of like my story and where I'm at and like what I've done. And I'm just not budging, right? Like I'm just like, I don't know, whatever. But he started opening up to me about like his life, because all the counselors there are also actively in recovery and went through that program too. So I kind of opened up a little bit, and I was like getting a feel for everybody. All the kids, they were super nice, super loving, super fun. And so I'm like, yeah, like these people will be really easy to fool, So immediately first day in, making reservations, right, to just like have my time here and then like just start using again. So my dad left me there for that first weekend, and I hung out with the girls, and I did really like them. I really loved everybody there. They made me happy. They all seemed genuinely happy. And it was like that initial, like, hi, what's your name? And like, they give you a hug and then just tell you that they love you. Like, as weird as it was, I never felt that love ever before in my life. So that's like initially what really roped me in. So I went into their inpatient. It was like 45 days long. So I lived in a house with about 7 other kids there. And we did intensive outpatient for all 45 days. I think it was like 6 hours every weekday, something like that. And that is really where my life started changing completely. Of course, they introduced me to the 12 steps, and to getting a sponsor, and all that stuff. So I'm kind of trying to gauge through all that. And my counselor, best woman on this planet. I love her so much. She saved my life. And so we started doing all that, and I'm kind of starting to shed, some of all of this gunk I've been, holding on to my entire life. And, by the end of it, I genuinely loved it so much, right? I loved sobriety. I loved enthusiastic sobriety. I loved loving people, learning how to be a good person, learning how to have friends, just being with people that genuinely care about me. I never felt that before. And so I got out of the inpatient and I went into outpatient, and that was for another, I think, 8 weeks. Yeah, 8 weeks. And I hate change. Change is horrible. So immediately I start going downhill again, right? I didn't use while I was there. I stayed sober for that 10 months, but change was definitely very hard for me. I did not want to leave that nice little inpatient program that I was in. I loved it there. But I kind of learned and like managed. And so I stayed for those 10 months. And I really loved it, but I was homesick. Me and my mom started really growing our relationship, and, it's hard to do that so far away. She can only come visit so often. And so I wanted to move back. I missed her. I felt like that relationship got robbed. And so I moved back, and lasted about a month. And then I relapsed, and it was hard. I don't think I realized either. I knew support was like a big thing, and like that you needed it because that's what everybody said whenever you were there. But I guess I didn't really understand it at the same time. I thought like, oh, like it'll be fine. Like it's whatever. So I was more so putting wants over needs at that point. So I ended up relapsing. And
let me interrupt you for just a second. So, and we're just gonna keep going for the last few minutes. So did you have a breakthrough like while you were in rehab? So you were in rehab for about 10 months, right? So was there like this one point that you just made the decision, okay, I'm going to be sober, or was it like kind of a slow process?
it was a bit of a slow process.
Okay.
It took a couple weeks. There was a lot of things I tried when they started making me do the step work. I was trying to pick and choose, like, oh, this works for me, but this doesn't work for me.
But you have to do all 12, right?
You do have to
Whether
do
you
all
want to or
12,
not.
right? But I'm very stubborn, especially when I first went in to recovery. So I was picking and choosing of what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really giving it my all. And it was at the very end of being in that inpatient is like whenever I did give it my all, but then that immediate change coming out of it and going just into or just outpatient and not being at that house anymore. It just like fell apart for me.
So with the relapse, was there something like a specific thing that set it off, or was that again just kind of a slow?
So
things are not so great.
So my main problem whenever I was at that recovery program was I never fully believed that I had a problem. I could never fully admit my first step.
Neither did I. I would have told you at that time too. She's not an addict. She just had a problem.
Yeah,
like
just
it was
had a really
just
rough
like,
time.
It was a
Yeah.
rough time. Like
Yeah.
she's not an addict.
She's
And I
gonna grow
did
out
say
of
that to multiple people.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
it was. I was like, the only reason I do it is because all of these things that have happened to me in my life, right? So, after I got back and I didn't have my support, right? I didn't have all my sober people around me, calling me out, holding me accountable, whatever. It was also easy for me to, see all my old friends again, right? Well, they're all in college, they all use, and they're fine. And I'm like, well, I've worked through all of my trauma, which was such a lie. I worked all my trauma is like done, like it's good. So I can do it manageably now, right? That makes sense. And so I tested that. I went and I got a dab pen. And I was, trying to manage it, right? I was like, okay, I'm only going to hit it like 2 times before bed to help me sleep, right? So that was my plan. That lasted 3 days. And then I was back on every drug I had ever done. And I went and I had told her, I came to the house and I had pulled my mom aside and I told her that I relapsed and that I didn't want to stop using. And because at that point I had so much respect for her, right? I knew her rules in the house. So I told her, I know you don't want this in your house, so I'm going to pack my things and I'm going to leave. This is what I want. And she was just completely hands off. And she was just like, okay, I know it broke her to a million pieces for the second time around. But, I had to figure it out. And deep down, she knew that. So I ended up leaving, and it was like roughly about a month. It was so out of hand. It's so true when they say, you pick up right where you left off. It was like that, but times like 50 for me. Like I said, I was back on everything. This time I was also drinking, and I was just mixing like so many horrible things. The last week of me using, every single night I would have like all the drugs and all the booze, whatever I could find. I'd lock myself in a bathroom. I'd be bawling my eyes out because I hated what I did to myself and to everybody around me. I hated that I just messed everything up. I felt so guilty, and that's the guilt was the reason that I didn't come back sooner. But so every night I'm like locking myself in a bathroom, bawling, throwing up blood until I just black out. And it was the worst thing I've ever been through, but I'm so thankful for that experience. I woke up one morning it was March 15th, 2019, and I woke up and I just took a look around this house. I have no idea whose house it was, the people like around me. I had like one friend that I knew, and all the people had left to go get more drugs and whatever. They asked me if I wanted to come, and I was like, no. And I was just looking around this house, and it was just disgusting, right? It's just bottles everywhere, bongs everywhere. It was just filthy. It was gross. And that's when I knew I didn't want to do this anymore. I immediately called my mom, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm so sick of this. I don't want to live like this. I want to be happy. I want to be healthy. I want to live. And we're both bawling on the phone. And at that point, I had even researched rehabs in Texas and like sober living. It's like anything, you name it. Cause I'm like, if you don't want me to come back home, I'll find somewhere to go, but like, I want to be sober and like, you need to know that. And, so she's like, oh my gosh, come home. We'll figure it out. So I was like, okay. I was about 2 hours away from the house too. So I got in my car and I drove home, and then that's when
got to work.
Yeah.
We got to work.
So we only have just a few minutes left. So no, yeah, no. So just in the last few minutes, what do you want people to know?
I want people to know that they're not alone if they're going through this, and that there are people out there that understand and can help direct them and find them help. Mosaics of Mercy is a really great
Thanks for mentioning that.
resource in the Montgomery County area. They have vetted a lot of resources available, and they will talk to you about what it is you feel like you're needing. We are available. We have a website, ourbeautifulrecovery.com. We have a Facebook page. Please reach out. I'm a counselor. I can connect you with resources. There's meetings you can come to and find resources. Just please know that you're not alone, and you don't have to do this alone, and you don't have to hide from it, because if you hide from it, your child, it's life and death for your child or for your loved one. So the sooner you can get help, the better for them. Yeah.
So Regan, what do you want people to know?
I think I literally just had it in my head. But I think, because I know, at least for me, I know it's like really scary to deal with all that pain all at once. But it's so worth it. It really is. It's like, get the help, reach out, like tell somebody, like just do something, like make some type of move to recovery. And I promise it's worth the pain that you have to go through, to get to the other side. And it's like, kind of what I was saying before, like, you're not worthless. I thought that I thought I was only here to die. And, that's not true. That's not true at all. And that, you are loved, and there's nothing too horrible that you've done in your past or in your using that makes you unlovable either. Because it's like, people like me and other people that I met in recovery, we get it, we've been there. And, you'll always have a family in recovery. You really will.
Right.
So.
And I think another thing that I kind of heard you say, it's a lifelong process, right? So
Absolutely.
You're not just like suddenly recovered and it's all good. It's something that you face every morning you wake up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And what do you tell yourself when you wake up?
Just for today. Keep it simple, just for today. Stay sober, just for today. Only worry about today. I used to future trip a lot, and that really helps me. So, that's all I have to focus on is right now.
Janelle, what do you tell yourself each day?
I say thank you to God that she's with me and she's alive, and that we get to tell our story, if maybe it will affect somebody and help somebody change and get help and live the life that they were meant to live, because her life is now beautiful. And to think that she could have easily been gone and not have the effect that she has on the kids that she is with now. And that would be really sad. So everybody has a purpose. And so I'm just thankful.
Well, thank you both for being here and sharing your story. And like you both just said, hopefully this helps someone else. So if you need help, reach out. There is help. There is hope. You mentioned Mosaics of Mercy, and they are an excellent organization that we have here in Montgomery County.
Yes.
Very helpful. The Behavioral Health and Suicide Prevention Task Force has 12 different work groups, and one of them focuses specifically on addiction.
Yes.
Because there's so many aspects of mental health, and so maybe addiction's not it's not what everybody goes through, but it is what some people go through.
Absolutely.
So being able to find the resources that you need to address that. And so the other work groups also help. And communityhelp.org org is the website for the Behavioral Health and Suicide Prevention Task Force, and that can kind of help connect. And then you can always call us at the Extension office. We are not counselors, we do not, but we can help kind of connect. So if you're trying to figure out, how do I get a hold of Janelle again, and we will have your contact information in the description of the show, so that if people want to reach out, they certainly can. Visit your website, that kind of thing. But if you want to call us at the Extension office, we're 936-539-7825. And, in Extension, we're all about helping Texans thrive. So sometimes it means agriculture and growing good plants and that kind of thing. And then sometimes it just means mental health and growing good people and helping people have better lives. So again, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for listening. This is the Extension Hour. I'm Amy Ressler, and we'll see you next time.